afternoon, everybody. Great time of year, ready to get things underway, headed to this the weekend. This March the 6th, the weekend. Dennis Fithian with you here. Great to be with you. Thanks for joining us as we get ready to talk about Michigan. Maize and Blue Review, that's where I'm working. So talking about Michigan is right where you would expect it to be. That's what we talk about. I don't know, it seems like 100% of the time, but I don't know if you really track it out 98% of the time. Sometimes mix something in about the Lions or the Pistons or whatever. I liked yesterday. I was looking at it this morning, that there was an AI review. See if I can find it. Maybe I can't. I liked it. It said, experts goes over the ins and outs of what happened in the game and looking for that. I was like, this whoever the machine there is locked in. I liked how it was going and what it had to say. Now, this is a show where we invite your feedback. We look forward to what you have to say. It's one of those, I say you can ask me anything. I don't know, go ahead, but I like to focus in on, what's happening with Michigan. And what's happening is we have a game, and it's a juicy game. Sunday is a very juicy game. There's a lot of things for Michigan on tap, and a victory on Sunday in the last regular game of the season. We'll get to all of that, the ramifications, permutations, all those things when it comes down to Michigan State in basketball coming up on Sunday. After Sunday, well, then it's the postseason, the Chicago Big Ten tournament, then the NCAAs. I mean, it's here. And then, the hockey team midweek will have a one-and-done game where it's survive and advance in the Big Ten tournament for the first time. So we've got that to look forward to as well. But let's get some thoughts on last night's game. Michigan won a dogfight at the end, and I think a lot of people understood that. Maybe they woke up this morning and said, hey, Michigan's only lost 2 games all year. They only lost 1 in the Big Ten, and they didn't lose any on the road. What an incredible season, that they've put together. Meanwhile, and as you watch the game in real time, and then right afterwards, it's like, it shouldn't have been so close. The refs suck, and Michigan's in trouble without Kaysen, and Burnett's ice cold. Maybe they should bench him, and all of those things. I mean, it's fine to talk about and work through, but they seem to have through a large portion of the fan base captivated them. And I think that now that I've had a little bit of time to think it over since last night, when you have a team that has put together a season like Michigan has, it has been a great season. Everybody agrees with that. But when you have great expectations, the expectation is to win it all. And it is going to be probably going to be a meat grinder, totally intense, have you on the edge of your seat. And that's if they win every game by double digits. Can you just imagine if they had a game like last night in the tournament, which very well can happen? It's not for the weak-hearted. I mean, you go into these games and you're just it's what you want, and yet you can really be when you can really be hurt when you have a team like this and you expect it all. We've seen plenty of teams go by the wayside, and so last night I think that's what happened, because Michigan played pretty well. I know it was close, and they were 8.5 point favorite in that game. And so when they only win by a couple points, that it is, and, I think that's what there are a lot of people doing. I thought they played pretty well. Yeah, they gave us some offensive rebounds late. And, Iowa hit some, it was desperate, made some plays, and made it close right at the end where Michigan had this one possession game. And I think that type of game helped them. It's March. These games now, all season long, you look at it and say, well, they can't, turn it over like that. They got to get better offensive rebound. They got to get better from this position or that position. And it's all fine to talk about, but we're now into the territory, now that we're into March, where that stuff doesn't matter, but it's the old survive and advance mode now for me. Looking back at something, are they going to be a team that's going to be a single-digit turnover team? Probably not. And sure, Dusty says it's because of the pace of play that, and the statistics bear that out. But, Dusty doesn't want 19 turnovers. He wants under 15. But it's a little bit of a shift there where you're always, you got to be under 10, where now 15 is okay for this team. And that's going to be tough for some people to be able to get comfortable with. But I looked at what they did well last night, and it's what they've really done all year long, is that they've got a front line that's one of the best ever in what they're able to put out there. And at times, Morrow looks unstoppable. Morez Johnson Jr. looks incredible. And then Yaks, if there was a part where there's been a little bit of a change, and maybe since it's, the first game, WLC without WLJC without LJ Kaysen, is that they put the ball in Yax's hands more, and Yax is bringing it up. And, Yax brought it up before, and Yax will bring it up when LJ was in there. And, and in my mind, from what I have seen, I would say that Yax is a better point guard, pure point guard, even though he's a forward or, point forward, 0.3, than LJ Kaysen. That doesn't mean LJ Kaysen isn't a huge loss. I mean, he was a fabulous scorer, a tremendous guy to have be able to take you off the dribble. His outside shooting was the best, most efficient over the last month. So those are all great things. But he's not really a great passer. I don't even know if he's an average passer. I think he's a below average passer, where Yaks is, with what he is doing, I think he's better, really. So when I hear people say, oh, well, they're in trouble because they don't have a backup point guard. Yeah, well, they got Yaks. And he's pretty good. So I'm not tensing up. Like, I get it. We don't have anything. We're not at practice. We can't push the button. So we're going to be tensed up thinking about all of that. So those are my thoughts after last night. And, Michigan, I'm giving them a little pat on the back for going undefeated in the Big Ten. Nobody's done it since '76. That speaks for itself. But every year when you look and, you predict records, do it mostly in football, but you do it in basketball too. You say, oh, they're not going to win all of these games. Well, they did. They won them all. So incredible. So that's how I feel about it. And John was talking about at the end of last night, it was a W. And that's a fine way to look at it. That's in the category of survive and advance. A W is a W. MGB is saying he wants to get to the tournament without any more injuries. I think everybody would agree with that. And he's saying, seeing Yak slip and limp yesterday on the play Mara banked it in caused me to hold my breath for a second. I didn't see Yak slip and limp. I know you talked about it in the postgame. And I did not see that, but maybe I was just marveling at the contortionist of the 7'3" Spaniard being able to make that winning play out of the timeout. So that was pretty cool. Ryan says, honestly, gonna stop making those turnovers at least is a win. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Can 100 Michigan fans all be going too much overboard on talking about the turnovers? Because that's what everybody's saying. Too many turnovers, even in a win. That's going to cost them. So I'm not just maybe I am just a little bit, skipping around, being like, hey, look at this team. This team is awesome. Instead of thinking about, hey, we better tighten things up, or this is going to be a disaster. So, I'll give you the nod on that. I would say that the careless turnovers, I'd like to see them minimize those, cut those down because they can end up costing you. So there you go. Okay. Well, let's go to this Michigan State game. So Michigan State has had a pretty good year. They're in the top 10. They had a victory. It was Michigan versus Michigan State last night on TV. Both of them playing at 8:00. Both of them end up. It looks like I didn't see. I think reading about it, it wasn't as close, but then it was as close because Izzo was putting all the seniors in, and maybe Izzo was mad that that Rutgers played the way that they were playing at the end because it disrupts his, the harmony. And we all know just how important that senior day tradition is, so everybody can kiss the logo. I mean, you go back to last year and everything, how upset that made MSU, and then the Izzo was in, classic Izzo or predictable Izzo mood after the game where he had a couple things to say. One was that he talked about Rutgers and he said that they're going to be a pretty good team as long as anybody doesn't tamper with them. Well, he might as well just come out and said Michigan's Dusty May's tamper. That's what happened there. I mean, that was if you're on, they used to say that's a subtweet. That was a shot right at Michigan. As every Michigan State fan, when they're not talking about Jeremy Fears being sabotaged for being a nasty player, they're talking about how Michigan has bought their players, and that's their theme, that's their narrative, that's what's making them feel good. And so Izzo played that up. You got to give Izzo credit for this. He knows how to push those buttons of the fan base, man. He D'Antonio was the same way. He knew how much everyone just hated Michigan, so he totally played to it. Izzo's been doing it his whole career, and he did it this year, and then he's doing it again last night. So it shouldn't be any surprise that Tom was, playing his game about, oh yeah, hey, Rutgers is going to be really good as long as teams aren't tampering with them. Okay, Tom. We'll see how Tom conducts his player search in the off season, because mostly those guys that they brought in weren't all that hot. So maybe he's telling his assistants now, even as he's talking about Michigan back channeling, tampering, back channeling, whatever you want to do. Maybe he needs to get, the MSU faithful lined up and start back channeling or tampering there. And, State fans to be very happy with that. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But, that's, as far as rivalry stuff goes, that gets you going a little bit when you got Izzo out there. That wasn't you say thinly veiled shot. That was just a complete shot right at Michigan. Oh, this is their program. We nurture our players. Michigan buys them. That's what is going on up there at East Lansing, and they're buying it hook, line, and sinker. Also, Izzo, what else did he say? Oh, he said that that they made it close. Don't worry, they're going to show up on Sunday. Actually, I have the quote. I put it together there on Rutgers. If somebody doesn't tamper with them, that's going to be a damn good team. This is if Michigan doesn't tamper with them. Oh, if somebody doesn't tamper with them, that's going to be a damn good team. There he is in his predictable finest, one of his finest moments, talking about that, about tampering. There you go, about that with Michigan. And then, he's talked about them showing up. So we will see on that. He said, I'll get the quote. Like it or not, we are going to show up Sunday. Okay. All right, Tom. We'll see how it plays out on Sunday. It should be, I don't know. it'll be interesting to see if any Michigan State fans are going to show up in the enemy territory and try to make their way into Ann Arbor, into the game, thinking that, so Michigan is poised for, just it's been an incredible season already, but it just a sweep of MSU would be a nice cherry on the top. And what I think that they have planned on Sunday, they're going to honor the seniors or the players that are in the last year. I don't know, guys like Yaks, I guess, too, going to get whatever they get, frame picture and all that. And some nice little ceremony after the game. And that ceremony, along with a Michigan win, is going to be a real raucous celebration. I would guess that with a win and maybe without a win, but without a win is going to be a little bit of like a rain on the parade. How much fun is everybody going to have, standing around watching, anybody from the support staff climb up on the ladder and snip a little bit of the net, maybe a few little golf claps. But if a win and sending Michigan State back to East Lansing, sweeping them, Tom Izzo and all that, well, then it's just a big party. I mean, now we're talking. Let's get it going. That's a big party. So let's see that part. I mean, if you want to feel good and feel great, a victory sending Michigan State back with their tail between their legs up to East Lansing would be not everything, but it would be in this season surely a punctuation mark on the greatest regular season. And for Michigan, they have. They won the game last night to go undefeated on the road, and then they could be the first team to ever win 19 Big Ten games and sweep MSU and solidify that number 1 seed, which they've only done 3 other times in program history, and have the big celebration on the last game of the regular season. It is we know that what really matters is just winning the tournament, but along the way, collecting all this hardware and the plaudits and records and what it is that Michigan will have the greatest season in Michigan basketball history if they take it all the way. It'd be great, just winning it, but all the things that there really won't be an argument. And 89 was awesome. But 89, did they win the Big Ten? Were they a 1 seed? They didn't do all that, but they did win it all, which stands alone as the one championship. But you do compare and say, okay, well, Michigan will have done everything and I didn't go undefeated, which then you're talking about the greatest season ever if we're able to complete it and take it the whole way. So there you go. That's my thoughts looking towards Sunday. I have no problem with Kevin Harlan, but if he was on the call against Wisconsin, then you don't want to see him because that might make you feel like you're going to have some bad mojo. I guess that's understandable. And Burnett needed to hit some threes. I would like to see that as well. Why? I think it would bode well. When you're a shooter, you get into a rhythm, you have the confidence. And right now we can say that Burnett does not have that. And I do think everyone would say that they need him to show up a little bit. You'd like to see him show up a lot. You'd like to see everybody contribute, but you'd like to see a game, maybe Sunday, and then heading into the postseason where, Namari is going to be a handful for other teams where, he's being a marksman and being a 3-point shooter is something that all the teams, you got to be able to shoot well from outside. And, that's Burnett. Can we see some 3-for-5s, a couple 3-for-5s, 2-for-5s, but, 3-for-5s? Can we get a game where he, makes 4 or 5 threes? Doesn't have to be Sunday, but in Chicago, maybe it'll be raining threes for Namari. And, I don't think that it's spending too much time making TikToks with his girl. I just think it's a a little focus. I say that I was being funny. I mean, he's doing a great job on social media, but shooting is a funny thing, like field goal kicking and threes, being dialed in, confidence. You'd like to see him get that. That's for sure. Rashad says, Mojo Smojo. I don't believe in that. Rashad, mostly I don't either, but you and I are in the minority when it comes down to that. You have to admit, but most fans, I would say that 75%, maybe even more than that, believe in all of that. Believe in announcer jinx, the guys coming up to the free throw line saying, hey, those guys at 80%, shut up, don't say that. Okay. You really believe that? They believe it. The fans believe it watching it. They do. Even some of the players, people actually say, well, they've never played the game. Some of the guys that play the game, they're very superstitious. Things that they wear, car, parking lot, the way they drive, everything, so I don't know. We're all different, but the majority of people, Rashad, are not like you and I. They have to believe in those sort of things. Like, if I don't have, St. Patrick's Day's coming up, and once in a while I'll see someone, and then I'll see, where's your green shirt? No, Michigan fan. I'll be a fan. I don't own any green shirts, which is great. I get that. It's fine. But if you actually had worn a green shirt, even if it's not on St. Patrick's Day, you get a hard time. And it's kind of a little bit like the Mojo stuff, but I think it's more understandable. You're like, why are you wearing a green shirt? Something. I have to admit, this just came up. There is a picture of me when I was in high school. I went with my friend to the airport. I don't even remember the circumstances or anything else. One of those things like, hey, you want to go pick up my, I don't know, mom, somebody's girlfriend, something like that. We're picking them up from the airport. And the Detroit Tigers were there in the airport back then when they were flying commercial. And we took some pictures, and Al Kaline and I got a picture with Al Kaline, a couple other ones. But when I was in high school, I was a Michigan fan over Michigan State, but I did have a few Michigan State shirts, and it just so happened that day I was wearing, probably the dirty clothes. I had a Michigan State shirt on, but it was my only picture ever with Al Kaline. And when he passed away, I put that up on Instagram, and there was predictably a lot. I don't have thousands of followers, but there were enough of people that saw that had something to say about the Michigan State shirt. I almost thought, can I get in there? Should I, maybe scrub? I just put it up there. I figured that's where it's at. What am I going to do? I'll take the heat. You can see it there. It's on Instagram. It's me back in high school with Al Kaline. Now, speaking of social media, if you're going to the Michigan game on Sunday, and, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm at Dennis Fithian, just like it says on the screen here. I'll check today and tomorrow and Sunday to see if anybody follows me. I'll follow everyone back, anybody in these next 3 days. I'll do that. And on Sunday, if you're at the game and you get there early enough, a half hour before tip's early, an hour before tip, you can DM me. Hey, yo, where are you going to be at? And, I'm going to go out and take a couple laps in the concourse, check out some different things, soak up the atmosphere, those kind of things. So I'll be checking those DMs. So put that follow in so you can direct message me. I don't think you can if you don't follow me, or I can't send a message back. I think that's how it works. Not Instagram. I don't check those messages, but I do on Twitter. So that's it when it comes down to that. So before we talk about the postseason, we'll take some more feedback. Blank Michigan State basketball. Can't stand them. I like it. People are a little worked up about it. Sam says, go back to that championship game versus Seton Hall Watch Seton Hall's last-second shot after Ramil hit his free throws close to Michigan having no NCAA national championship in basketball. Wow, how many seconds were left when that happened? You know what I remember is that I interviewed the late Bob Lee from ESPN, and I didn't even know. I don't remember what the circumstances why I had him on or anything else, but I'm talking with him. And so Bob Lee immediately comes on, and Bob Lee is a Pirate. He's a Seton Hall grad. So immediately he's on in Ann Arbor, and he's like, Ramil was not fouled. I don't like to bring up, he's bringing it. We went right to the officials. He's like, I don't like to bring up the officiating, but go back and watch that foul. And, we talk about officiating a lot. And, Michigan, the refs got him in for it. So Tony Batiti does have it in for him, all of that. Remember the 2016, you'll still see a person here or there, probably every other day, somebody will talk about JT Barrett, was short, and, the people, the big conspiracy. There were a few people writing letters about the officiating. It was dirty and everything. But, that was Bob Lee thought that was and it was a very benign foul. Ramil just, you got to it was at overtime. He barely got tapped. Ramil, sure, he could have just thrown it over to Mark Hughes, and Hughes is about 15 feet away, and he set it up and he scored it. This is what I think would have happened, but Ramil had to go up there and knock those free throws down. Yeah, I probably have watched that. Did they take it out? Seems like did they take it out of the side, threw it up? Yeah, I'll have to. Now that you've said that, I'll go back and look at it. It's like wow, Carolina's Caleb Wilson broke his thumb in practice. That sounds like it'll keep him out. Let's see. Non-contact drill. He'll undergo season-ending surgery. Ooh. So, yeah, one of Carolina's best players and a guy who looks like, this is one of the greatest NBA drafts on paper as we head in. That's why all these, tanking's been a big story. There's this play when Wilson's one of them. Caleb Wilson, that guy, he might be number one in a lot of other years. Acuff out of Detroit, he could be number one in a lot of other years. But DeBonce, Boozer, the Peterson, that is a hell of a draft right there. So it's tough break for the Tar Heels. 3 seconds for the inbound. Last night, Michigan should have fouled. I would have been in favor. Everybody, I'd say if I was coaching, I would always want, if Michigan, Michigan was up by 2, I would have wanted Michigan to foul with 4 seconds to go. That's what we have seen over the years. They're up 3. I guess you don't want to foul if you're up 2. You want to foul if you're up 3. You don't want them to shoot a 3-pointer. You want to foul. And so that wasn't the case in the championship game, but it was last night. But, nobody was really beside themselves when it came down to that. 3 seconds for the inbound. Rashad talking about Ramil. Earlier that season, Ramil Robinson missed free throws at Wisconsin that lost Michigan a game. And he wasn't a good free throw shooter, so I was quite nervous when he made those versus Seton Hall. Yeah, me too. Not only wasn't he a good free throw shooter, I would say that he was probably a terrible free throw shooter. What are we going to guess, Rashad? Under 70%, but I'd say 60% for a point guard. Let's just see. That's what I'm going to say. I'll say over or under 63%. What would you go? It'd be interesting if anybody knows. You're pretty dialed in Michigan fan. If you know what Ramil Robinson's free throw percentage is off the top of your head. Like I said, below 60%. Let's see. Ramil Robinson's college stats. Here they are. 1988-89 champion. Field goal percentage. Field goal. Free throw percentage. Here we go. I said over under 63. Let's see if anybody came up. Ramil Robinson was a 66% career free throw shooter. He was a 66% shooter. So there he is, 66.6. Sam looked it up before. Well, no, maybe not before me. Typed it out as I was talking. So he did not go over or under. He just came up, and maybe he just knew it. And maybe Sam, now that for the rest of my life, if somebody asks me or if I talk about Ramil Robinson, I'll say, it's really easy to remember Ramil Robinson's career free throw shooting percentage because it's 666. Easy number to remember when it comes down to that. All right. So, looking towards Chicago and the people that are like, well, I hope they lose early so they'll let it rest. I am not in that category. Go back 5 minutes ago when I was talking about what they can do this season. Along the way, picking up the hardware. Michigan has never, won both the regular season title and the conference tournament title in the same year. So they'll have that going for them. They'll have the no losses on the Big Ten road going for them. They would have, if they win on Sunday, not only a sweep of MSU, but also then just those 2 losses and a number 1 seed. And they've only been a number 1 seed 3 times in the history of Michigan hoops. And so if they would go all the way, which is really all anybody cares about, but when you do that, it is nice because then you compare not only to your own team, to that 89 team, and say, hey, I'm going to say that the 26 team is better than the 89 team because, there was no postseason tournament, but there was not a Big Ten regular season title. They were not a number 1 seed. This team lost last. They marched in and they won it all. They will have put together the greatest season ever. And then I haven't looked at see. There's been a lot of undefeated, UCLA and or the UCLA teams, and then the Indiana team that went undefeated. But then you think, how many other great teams are there? Jordan and Worthy for Carolina. That one, you start going way back and you think about that. And then you think about, well, what are some of these teams? UConn, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the way they smashed everyone by double figures, you'd think that's a hell of a team. Maybe the Florida team that went back to back. So there's a lot of them, but Michigan, if they take it the whole way and they'll at least have some kind of argument to be somewhere ranked in I don't know if it's top 10. I just rattled off like 10 that they probably would not be in, or maybe they could be, but they certainly would be in a top 25. And those things, how much do they mean? A little bit. Hey, greatest season ever in school history. How about the greatest season ever in Big Ten history? So you got IU, but how many others? That's it. Yeah, that's right. 2018. That was the Blitzkrieg. That was a heck of a team. That's the team that beat Michigan. That they had, they proved out. I didn't think Michigan was going to win that game. They didn't. But you look at all the players that Villanova had, they were awesome. So there you go. You put Villanova up there, and I mentioned that Michigan was a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. This will be the 4th time. Looks like that's going to happen. I guess it's not guaranteed yet, but it looks like that's going to happen. So it'll be the 4th time that they're a 1 seed. The 3 previous, one was a pretty good year. The other one was not too shabby. And then the third one, the first time they were a 1 seed, was a complete disaster. And the first time was back in 1985. And Michigan, they won the Big Ten. They were in it back-to-back in 85, 86 or 84, 85. I guess I'd have to see if that was the first of the Big Ten or the second. I think it was the first. So they'd win the Big Ten. They're the number 1 seed. In the second round, they take on a coked up Villanova team, and they lose to Villanova. And it was a huge shock. Ed Pinckney, Don McLean on that. And Raleigh Massimino was the head coach. And that Villanova team goes all the way to the championship game. And that coked up the Villanova team beats Georgetown. And, they're one of the darlings all time in college basketball. One of the Cinderella stories. And sometimes you hear people say, well, does it make you feel any better that, you lost to the eventual champ? Not really. Not really. It didn't make me feel any better. I don't think it made people say that, but maybe it's just to give you a little smidge of like, yeah. No, I mean, very little bit. If there's any, it's very little bit. So that is it. So 85 was a disaster. They lose in the second round to Villanova. Then the next time that they were a 1 seed was the Fab Five sophomore year, and that was a pretty good season. They won the Big Ten. No, the Fab Five never won the Big Ten, but they won. They were a 1 seed, and they didn't have a Big Ten tournament then. And they go all the way to the championship game and lose to North Carolina. That was the old timeout and everything. But getting to the championship game is hard to say. That's a pretty good season. I'll just say everything except the championship. And then the third time that Michigan was a 1 seed was just a few years ago in 2021. They won the last time they won the Big Ten outright. Hunter Dickinson was a freshman on that team, Franz Wagner. And you remember in the Elite Eight, they had 3 shots at least with pretty good shots to get to the Final Four. The best one, I don't remember, 20 seconds to go on the clock, maybe less. If you would have said, hey, Franz, go anywhere you want on the floor, you can shoot a 3 to get to the Final Four, where are you going to go? And I think Franz would have picked right where he shot it from. A little bit, not right at the top of the key, but just a little bit off to the left. And he airmailed it. And then I don't remember who, Smith, the point guard, he had a shot. Seems like, so maybe they just had 2, but I kind of feel like they had 3 late, very late, to beat UCLA to get to the Final Four. So that was a pretty good season, but it's just like this team. It's hard. It's good. It's as I sit here right now. If they lost in the second round, that feels like that would be a disaster. Even if they lost in the Elite Eight, not a disaster, but man, it would be so gut wrenching because they'd be that close to getting to the Final Four where you feel like, along the way, part of, just you want the championship, but every step you validate the regular season. Michigan let's just say they just take it in steps. If they were able to get to the Final Four, you'd say, man, this team's one of the best in Michigan history. And they validated it by getting to the Final Four. What a hell of a run. God, Dusty May, hell of a job, all of that. And of course, if they win it all, then you're starting to talk about all the where they fit all time as one of the greatest. But if they fall short, I've seen people, this is and it's not just an internet thing, it's a sports talk thing. It's when you have this kind of team and you've put together this kind of season, there's a lot of folks, and a lot of them are rivals, but a lot of them are, I think are Michigan fans too, because you've got to put it out there. You have to win or it's a bust. It's a failure if you don't win. And, I get that part. I get it. But, and I'm not, you have to sit here and say, well, what if they really made the Final Four and then they, lost about it? Would be excruciatingly painful. I'd have a hard time saying failure, pointing at it. But if that's how other people, I think it's just how comfortable you are yourself. I feel like it would be, if I want to put the failure label, they lost in the first round, it'd be a failure. Second round, failure. Sweet 16, getting to the Sweet 16, nice, but you got to advance to the Elite Eight. I mean, they got to get to the Final Four. Or I'm going to put, I feel like it would be an understandable F tag on them. Failure tag. I don't know what other kind of F tags you want to put on them, but the failure tag. But you get to the Final Four and lose. I don't know how much I'm going to be putting. Go ahead. Anybody else wants to do it? I'm just saying myself. I won't be doing that. So there you go. Let's look at some of the final feedbacks on here. Teams I don't want to play into the Final Four: UConn, Florida, Iowa State. Add Houston to that list too. Yes, I wouldn't want to play Houston. I thought you were adding. You could add Houston not only to the teams that you don't want to play in the Final Four, but the Phi Slamma Jamma team is one of the all-time greats. Teams that they used to stay together. You don't really get that nowadays. So didn't Houston? They lost it to NC State, and then did they win it? So with Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, that seems like a pretty big deal. It seemed like a pretty good team. Isn't that how it played out? I forget. I know they lost to NC State. And it's just like Georgetown when they lost to North Carolina. They had the guard, Fred Brown, where they were coming down for a last-second shot. I think the situation was that it was a tie game, and there was no shot clock back then, so you're hanging on to it. And Fred Brown is this guard. He's hanging on to it. And instead of passing it to one of his teammates, he just looks over at James Worthy standing right next to him. And he passes it over to James Worthy. James Worthy goes in, scores the game-winning layup, national championship. He wins it for the Tar Heels. And, of course, Brown is crushed. But he's got Big John Thompson who had the towel over him. And Thompson, is a 7-footer, 6'10", puts his, arm around the kid, But Georgetown, the good thing for Fred Brown, probably, I think a good thing, it must have been a terrible year for Brown. You could just imagine. Imagine just throwing the championship game away. Georgetown came back and won it the next year, and there was Thompson again with his arm around. And, so you don't have to live with that. If Georgetown ever comes back and wins that guy is he's changing his name to, Fred Brown to Fred Smith. He's moving to the West Coast because you're never going to let that down. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can let down. You miss a free throw. I cringe because, who hasn't missed some critical free throws at the end of games, but miss a shot like Franz, but Franz went on to the pros and everything, but Brown, that would have been, but he let off the hook. DiVincenzo. If he was off that night, we would have won it that year. They had a lot of other players, though, besides DiVincenzo, and he was. And it just seems that every time that Michigan, they had Hancock against Louisville. They had when they played Carolina, there was the other dude that ended up being the MOP that hit all the threes. They run into an incredible hot shooter when Michigan plays in the championship game. Yeah. It was Rashad earlier. It says he doesn't believe in any of that, but believe me, Michigan gets to the championship game, you're going to be hunting down the roster and say, don't let that guy pull a Hancock or a DiVincenzo or the dude from Carolina had that T-shirt underneath his jersey. Woo! Smith should have give it to Brown. What's Brown's name? Chauncey? Chandre Brown. I love that guy. They didn't only play for 1 year for Michigan. He's, when you think about 1 year guys, yaks, Chandre Brown. There's two of them right there. Rashad says that Gale's ball handling makes him nervous. Yeah, me too. Gale makes me nervous, but Gale is a super, super streaky player. And last night, in the last 25 seconds, he made 2 great plays. He swatted a shot off the backboard that Michigan was able to get possession. Michigan throws the ball, the ensuing possession, into Morris Johnson Jr. Gets called for a travel. So then Iowa gets the ball back. Their guy drives the lane. Gale strips him, slaps it off the guy's knee, and it goes out of bounds. Michigan ball. I mean, those are as great a plays that you'll ever see. And if it's a confidence thing, which I think it is with Gale, getting Gale on the right side of that confidence could, it could mean a lot. I mean, I'm not predicting that. I understand what you're saying, but we've seen great Gale. And the wins, something Gale wins. Gale, he gets the wind in his sail. Watch out. Losing to Duke by 5, Whiskey by 3. Michigan has had many close call wins. Wake Forest by 1, TCU by 4, Penn State by 2, and Nebraska by 3. That all checks out. But they also, Sam, if we're continuing on, the most wins by a team over, how many, was it 7? They got a lot where they beat the team by 40. And most wins by double figures. I mean, all those kind of things. They've got also some incredible numbers on their side when it comes down to it. G-Town beat Houston in the Final Four. Brown beat Houston in the Final Four. Is that what that means to say? Donald Williams. I should remember that. I have a friend named Donald Williams. He lives in Alaska. Hancock. Names that you don't like in the tournament. Donald Williams. Hancock. DiVincenzo. Pinckney. Massimino. McLean. Louisville was stripped. Wish Winters Grady was healthy as another bench shooter. Sure. I understand that. Iowa by 3 to win it all. Michigan must not go into the tank with turnovers. Is that what's going to cost Michigan? It wasn't turnovers against Duke. It was a bunch of guys not playing their best games. When you go through Michigan to get this incredible bench, we've already mentioned Gale, but McKinney, Burnett, you've Cheddar. You get 5 or 6 guys that did nothing. And they didn't shoot well. So it wasn't the turnovers against Duke. That's not the thing that you would say that's why Michigan lost to Duke. It was a bunch of players. Michigan overall didn't shoot well. Any team, you feel like you got to shoot well. You better have. That's why you like Michigan, because they can do some other things if the 3-point shooting is not there. But they didn't shoot it well. They had a bunch of different guys that didn't play up to their capabilities, and that's how they lost. And Wisconsin, they let that one dude from the Eastern Bloc go bonkers on them, and Dusty didn't call a timeout, and that was that. Wisconsin, just had this incredible run where they were throwing it in from everywhere. It was not the turnovers against Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, the turnovers actually haven't cost Michigan a game this year. Maybe there's some close games, but it has not been the turnovers. But, you see them last night and that's fresh on your mind. You say, well, that's how it cost. Yeah, not shooting well from 3, turnovers, those would be 2 things. I would say because their bench has been such a big deal, not having their backcourt, I would say foul trouble. That would put that one in there. Mara had 2 fouls and they got a third in the first half. That was a big factor in the Duke game. Foul trouble on one of their big 3 on their front line. That would be an issue. Not shooting well. A bunch of players going into the tank for a game. That also happened against Duke. another player, Donald Williams, Hancock, the Brazgabusis or whatever his name was from the Wisconsin going crazy. Yeah, something like that. That's how you lose a ball game. Dennis, I will be in Ann Arbor tomorrow. Send me the location. Tomorrow? That's pretty early for the game. You mean Sunday, right? Mar, you're going to be at the game Sunday? We'll take a few more here. If it wasn't for Glenn Rice, Jeff Lebo. Ooh, I remember old Jeff Lebo would have been another guy on that list because both were red hot from three the whole game. Jeff Lebo, a name that I haven't heard in 30 years. 30 years. If Cadeau is really struggling, we can just play Max. Who's Max? Yaks, Trey, Morez, Adai, and Cheddar. Yeah, well, the thing about this is if he's really struggling, he's still playing. There have been a few games where Cadeau hasn't played well and Michigan still won the ball game. I mean, because they only lost 2 games. There have been a handful of games where Cadeau, you look and he's like, wow, he only had 4 points. And they still won. In the games that they did win, now he wasn't great. I'm trying to think about how he did against Duke. I don't remember, but he had a good game against Wisconsin when they won. So the other games, there were a lot of games actually they did not play that well. But I don't think that this is now that you're into all big games, Michigan State, the tournament in Chicago, the NCAAs, Cadeau's playing close to 30 minutes. Even if he's struggling, you're not going to, in the last 5 minutes of a game, I mean, how much would he have to struggle where you're in the last 5 minutes of the game and you're Dusty like, no, go down to the bench. Now, maybe you're putting Cheddar. So they can just go with Cheddar instead. No, they're going to be going with Cadeau. Remember, if they had LJ, I mean, that's the whole thing with LJ. LJ, if he had a game like he did at Northwestern where he took it over and Michigan would have lost that game, I think we can all say that. It wasn't for LJ Kaysen. If Michigan had LJ Kaysen and Cadeau was not playing well and Kaysen was playing out of his mind, which, he had been playing out of his mind, you could see LJ, theoretically, if he was healthy, in some of those games. But now you don't. Cadeau's out there. Cut from a different cloth says, I see that Wilson Evolution basketball in the background. You must still play since you have that ball in your possession. Best basketball on the market. Well, it needs a little air, but I got to tell you that the jumper can still be there. It just takes a little. That muscle memory is still there. There's nothing. This is what it comes down to. Cut from a different cloth right now. Is that my favorite thing to do all time in my life is play basketball. That would be number one. I play, and you lay down at night to go to sleep, and you sometimes just like, I'm not really sleepy. I just think about playing basketball. And it just, wherever I'm at, just puts a big smile on my face, sleeping. And it's awesome. Warm and fuzzies and all of that. And if I'm not playing basketball, I like talking basketball. Or I like going to basketball games. Playing, well, let me reset the list. Playing, going, talking. Those are the 3. Now, there's some other things that would get into my top 10 all time instead of just talking about basketball. You got to have a couple other things, but I have a passion for the game. I love it. Let's see here. With any luck, we will beat Sparty so bad Izzo will retire. Though when he does, I'll miss his tantrums. Yeah, well, he's over 70 years old. So one of these years, I think, how long is he going to coach? Is he going to be coaching over 75? he doesn't have that many more years. So sweeping him this year and sending him on his way would be awesome. It would be similar. I would have a similar feeling. This sending Izzo off would be great, but Harbaugh was able to do it with D'Antonio. D'Antonio was a thorn in Michigan's side, and D'Antonio didn't just retire where he was, running roughshod over Michigan. Partly, probably why he retired. Harbaugh snuffed him out. His end of his terror was over. And that was great. I'd love to see that. Harbaugh also was able to end Nick Saban, which was also very satisfying. If May is able to stuff Mr. March in a locker, and then maybe Tom, it would not be a super shock if that Tom gets stuffed into a locker and that he just calls it quits. This offseason. And the thing you say, you'll miss his tantrums. There's a part about it. I think when Izzo retires, I think that we'll be able to say, hey, he's good for college basketball. Seemed like he ran a clean program. He's a Hall of Famer. Boy, he is one of the greats. They'll have a statue and everything. But when you're a Michigan fan, sometimes you feel like that. But most of the time, you feel like that little mischievous, stuck-up weasel. I mean, that's what you think most of the time. But, he understands that. Everyone understands that. I'm just, patting Tom Izzo on the head right now. It'd be a patting him on the head. It'd be more like a Juwan Howard slap kind of thing. Interesting. Dusty's got to start bringing the tournament balls to practice. That's got me thinking about a question the next time I talk to Dusty, if he's going to be out there with some tournament basketballs. Sam breaking it all down. 65, losing to UCLA. 76, losing to the Hoosiers, who went undefeated. Got that 89 natty. 92, lost to Duke. Ooh. 93, lost to Carolina. Oh. Louisville in 13. 18 to Villanova. The 18 loss didn't hurt as much because the Villanova team was that much better. The 13 loss hurt. The further you go back, so the younger you are, the more then those start to hurt. The back-to-back Duke, Carolina losses were excruciating. And I don't remember 76 or 65. It's funny. I liked John Wooden, a big fan, and I liked Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight until, I don't know, probably around 1990, I started losing respect with him. Yep, you have a great day. Everybody have a great day. I have one other thing. Let's see. Izzo's holier than thou passive-aggressive prick. Yeah, he's prickly. That's right. About the tournament ball. Yeah. I don't know. I think the visitor picks the basketball for the home game, so I don't know what happens with the Big Ten tournament. Do they have Big Ten tournament stamp balls? Probably, because then they can sell them. And then we know about those yellowish balls. Yes, 89 was a long time ago. Let's all go through that. It is too long. What is also coming down to the wire is this flash sale. And what that means is that you can join up with the Maize and Blue Review, like I encourage you to do every show. And you do that by going to on3.com and you join the Maize and Blue Review right now. You get 50% off your first year. That's a flash sale that is going. Also, you get a membership to the Athletic, complimentary. That's not too shabby. So take advantage of that. Maize and Blue Review. We'd love to see you over there. You take your Michigan fandom to the next level. That's the way it's done. And we look forward to seeing you over there talking hoops, just like we are right now. We're talking them over there. Sam says in high school during a concert band practice 50 years ago, our band teacher wrote, Indiana is number one on the blackboard. I was bitter. That's a good, I like the story. 50 years ago. It's funny, I like the Indiana, not the 76 team. Although Kent Benson went to the Pistons, I liked him. And Quinn Buckner. I kind of liked Quinn Buckner for a while, but as a broadcaster, I don't remember him as a player much. But I liked Isaiah Thomas on that 1980 team. That's it. Hey, Mr. Martini's over there. Mr. Martini, let's go. You can see Mr. Martini. He's always talking hoops. He does it. All right, we'll talk with you on Sunday. Everybody have a great weekend. Wait, that's it? That's the show? I guess so.